And so, of course, to prepare for that and to justify the implications, I'm sure the market is pricing in the future growth, the kind of like the future features, right? And part of that is being continuing to grow and being a sustainable ecosystem, right? Winning the next Parachain auction and so on. And so, I think one of the common strategies that everybody has been talking about is to then maintain a dominant position by using your advantage as a Parachain that has won to accrue a treasury or like kind of like a sovereign fund for the Parachain itself.
Yeah.
And I'm sure for Moon River and Moonbeam, there's already such an idea to accumulate such a treasury. Would you like to share more about that? Where's it going to come from and how will it grow and diversify?
Yeah, it's something that like isn't talked about a lot. Everyone's focused just on this kind of initial, which Parachain teams are going to occupy the first slots, who's going to win auctions and so forth. But this is part of the challenge that's being handed to Parachain teams, is not just to get in a slot to begin with, but the question is, it's around like sustainability, basically. So like, what is the long-term plan for ensuring that you can, it's basically an apartment you're renting, right? So you have a lease for a year. You need to live there for like, for the next 20 years, let's say. Like, what's the plan to kind of like continue to afford like your rent payments, like, like over the course of that time? And this is where I think what some people don't realize is, they might say, well, you just continue to run crowd loans. I mean, these are great. Like, it's like, let's just keep doing those. Well, you'll as a team, like, or as like a protocol, you'll run out of rewards at some point, right? I mean, that's just basically like yes, it helps you bootstrap, but like, ultimately there is just some, I mean, unless you kind of have some huge amount of like new issuance, like you're not going to be able to just, kind of keep doing crowd loans, right? And so I think what many teams that are kind of thinking about this like long-term sustainability plan are looking at, and I'll include us in this bucket, would be, to kind of have the chain itself accrue enough relay chain asset over time, such that like there's an end state where the chain can be fully self-sovereign. And what I mean by that is that, like, imagine a world where maybe there isn't even a crowd loan, maybe there's just like an on-chain action that like directly puts in a bid like on into the auctions for a slot, and then so the chain via its governance functions basically would go and like perform that action and then stay, pay its own rent and stay in the slot. I think that's kind of the end state that we envision, that we would like to have like Moon River and Moonbeam get to. And so then the question is just like, how do you get there, right? So you need to plot a path that will get you there. And I think there's almost no team that has like we were talking about before, what could be like some kind of large sum to just put down, like to be able to win the slot directly. But that's a key question, is how does this what is the path to sustainability? And for us, like a big part of that is that part of like the new issuance that like happens all like in the Moon River and Moonbeam systems does go towards like this what we call our Parachain bond reserve, to be able to ultimately accrue enough of the relay chain asset to be able to be self-sovereign. So that is the concept.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, because I think the assets have to come from somewhere, right? And right now, as I understand the business model, if you may, the revenue model for Moon River and Moonbeam is to take gas fees essentially, and well, 80% of it is burned, 20% of it goes to the treasury, but the asset that's going to the treasury is the native token itself, right? So at some point, we still need to somehow convert it to either KSM or DOT, or accrue that in some other way. And so I think it'll be really interesting to follow, I think, like the evolving models that could come up, right? Be it some sort of bonding, some sort of diversification that many DAOs are actually trying to go through right now.
Yeah, I think obviously there's old-fashioned ways to like. So I mean, the question of these conversions, we have we don't necessarily have all the answers yet, but we have looked at this problem. It is an interesting problem. Obviously there's like kind of what I call more old-fashioned ways to solve this problem, which is you could do like a community like sale and then exchange like one asset for the other. It turns out that like just directly trying to use protocols like that, like if you have local DeFi protocols, is actually a little bit tricky, because one simplistic idea is like, hey, well, we have these like dexes like on the platform, let's just do a dex trade. But you realize that like there's like practical problems with this. So, like governance motion might take like 3 days to enact. So like think about like the front running is possible if you see some like huge trade like slow motion, like coming into like a DEX, I mean, you're going to get like heavily like front run. So,
Yeah.
there's like practical challenges here. What I think I'm most interested in is I do think that you look at some of these like newer DeFi protocols. I mean, there's like, for example, there's like the Iron Bank. There's other like there's like new protocols that are kind of targeting other protocols as their customer, basically, right? And so in this
Mm.
case, for one thing that would make sense could be, let's borrow like the relay chain asset and use like our own asset as collateral on some kind of protocol to protocol like action. Um,
Mm.
I think that's like interesting, right? Because it might be the case that you don't even want to give up like that, like the native like asset. You just need practical access, for a fixed like amount of time for the relay chain asset. So
Mm.
yeah, I think that we'll continue to see kind of evolution in this area as there's more customers for like these protocol to protocol kind of actions to target.
Yeah, that's a really interesting idea. And I think alongside that, there's been a emerging narrative around DeFi 2.0 as well, where protocols control value or liquidity, and they can either give that out or like buy that through some sort of like a bond in some cases where like people actually give you KSM or dot in exchange for like a discounted mover or glimmer token, or to give you some liquidity. And in that sense, then the treasury or the protocol actually then owns it and you can use it in whatever way you want. So that perhaps the DeFi 2.0 kind of tactics can then overlap or like merge with the Parachain treasury building tactics. Right? I think we'll see how this evolves.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. I mean, I think a lot of the DeFi evolution we're seeing is kind of like creating like more and more specific products that like meet just some like the actual need at hand without like a lot
Mm.
of other extra baggage. So I'm sure someone will maybe create a kind of a parachain like bond as a service, kind of protocol for teams like us, where we kind of put in, it's kind of, it just pays for like the carry like time, like of that asset for the parachain like lease duration. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think over time I can see a future where like if all of the major parachains have a substantial amount of relay chain assets, essentially you'll become like the mega corporations of the ecosystem, and not only fund yourself but maybe even like future parachains, right? Other newer or smaller parachains, right? Perhaps that could be some sort of a group or a DAO or a syndication going on. I think the possibilities are endless.